So I got myself a brand new toy. So people seem to really like my last motherboard review, so I figured I'd hit you with another one because I just picked this one up for myself. It's a B850 AORUS Elite Wi-Fi 7. Good Lord, that's a mouthful. Now, if I am able to help somebody find their next motherboard, or I can help you make an informed buying decision, well then, hot dang it, I think that's a pretty alright thing. Now, first and foremost, this is an AM5 socket motherboard, meaning you can run the latest and greatest of AMD CPUs. But let's not kid ourselves. You want a 9800X3D. I don't blame you. Nobody could blame you. It's an awesome chip. Now, seeing as how this is a B board, it does fall behind the X870 lineup of motherboards, but do not kid yourself for even a second. This is still a monster motherboard packed full of goodies. Just like this channel is packed full of goodies, so you should subscribe because I want to see you here more often. Now, if we are going to start anywhere, we should probably start with the unboxing so that you guys know what you get when you buy this motherboard. All right, so digging into our box here, you have your motherboard. We're gonna lift it out. We'll get into the motherboard in a minute. Let's see what else we have in the box. So we get, this looks like for your power connectors. This just helps you plug in your power connectors. You get some SATA cables. This is your Quick Connect Wi-Fi antenna. And you get a installation guide. This looks like just to review them. And then I guess just a list of all the stuff they have to offer. So it's pretty basic. And for the only reason that you're watching this video, here is the motherboard in its beautiful anti-static bag. Go ahead and pull it out. Ah, so beautiful. And here she is in all of her glory. Now, I really love the way that this board looks. It's more of a like blackout style motherboard. It's very dark, not a lot of color pop to it. And I find that very, you know, kind of like a breath of fresh air, because most of the boards you find now are just massive amounts of RGB just thrown in your face, and I didn't really want that for the build that this particular motherboard is going into. Now, one of the things that I really enjoyed about this board was the fact that the M.2 layout is a little different. Typically, you find an M.2 slot up top here that's separate from the rest of the M.2 availability on the board, but on this particular board, all three of the available M.2 slots are under one cold plate down here, and I really like that. Is there something that I can use to prop this motherboard up? I do not need to hold this. Listen, if we're gonna continue to do motherboard reviews, I am gonna need a motherboard stand because this is simply not gonna cut it. I don't know, what do you put up front to make sure it doesn't slide out? Okay, I guess so from now on, I'm just gonna have slow movements for this entire video because I don't want this thing to slide out and break. So until I can get a stand, we're just not gonna touch the desk. Because of the fact that there is no M.2 in between your CPU socket and where you will be putting your graphics card, they shortened that area up. So if you were planning on running a large air cooler, there is a possibility that if it's large enough, it would come in contact with your GPU. Now, if you're getting this board, there is a strong possibility that you're gonna be running a higher end CPU, in which case you're probably gonna be going with an AIO, and in that situation, it's not going to matter at all. But if you plan on using a very large air cooler, you are going to want to look into the dimensions to make sure that it's compatible. Just don't want you to buy this thing and then run into that issue. For this particular board, we have the ability to utilize 1 Gen 5 NVMe and 2 Gen 4 NVMe's. The primary M.2 slot gets its full lanes from the CPU and runs at a full PCIe 5.0 x4, and it is backwards compatible with Gen 4. Now, the secondary M.2 slot also derives its full lanes from the CPU, but it runs at PCIe 4.0 x4, so Gen 4 and SSD performance. The third and final M.2 slot gets its full lanes from the south bridge of our chipset and runs at full PCIe 4.0 x4 SSD performance. These slots are clearly labeled on the motherboard and show either CPU or south bridge to let you know where the lanes come from, which is a very handy visual guide. And of course, all of our M.2 slots come with toolless installation, so snapping in and out your M.2s is an absolute breeze, and you don't need to worry about that microscopic little screw. In the top top left corner of our motherboard, you will find two EPS 12-volt power connectors. This board has one 8-pin and one 4-pin connector for EPS power instead of two 8-pins that you find on higher spec parts. Now, of course, this system will function with just the 8-pin connected, but the more wires you use, the less heat builds up per wire. Therefore, if your power supply does support it, I would 100% recommend fully utilizing the 12-pin 8+4 configuration, especially if you plan on using this board with a powerhouse CPU. Also in this area, we cannot forget the VRM heat sinks, which are two monolithic aluminum blocks connected by a heat pipe. This design helps distribute heat more evenly and has the potential for higher cooler performance. If we take a look at the rear I/O panel on the board, you will see some perforation here to help continue improving VRM thermals. And I guess now that we're here, we should take a look at the I/O panel. Starting at the top here, we do have our display port and a BIOS flashback button. This board does have 12 USB ports in total, even though 4 of them are our slower USB 2.0 standards, and you would just use those for like peripherals that don't require higher speeds. Now, for faster devices, there are 8 high-speed ports. 5 of them are rated at 5 gigabits per second. They are the blue ones here, and the red ones that you see are rated at 10 gigabits per second, while our USB-C connector is also rated at 10 gigabits per second. Now, and below that is Gigabyte's Quick Connect Wi-Fi antenna. Now, Gigabyte seems to be very proud of that because I see information about their Quick Connect Wi-Fi everywhere. But the idea is that rather than screwing in your Wi-Fi antenna, you just plug it in. Now, I'm not sure who is out there plugging in and unplugging their Wi-Fi antenna all the time, but I guess a feature is a feature. But it is Wi-Fi 7, so you are getting some of the best Wi-Fi that is offered right now. Now, here's something that I thought was interesting. The Ethernet port that we have on the I/O panel here is actually rated for 2.5 gigs, which is slower than what you get with the Wi-Fi on this board. So it actually makes more sense to use Wi-Fi on this board than it does to be wired into your router. And lastly, we have our 3.5mm jack configuration, which compared to some boards is pretty minimal with just 2 ports, one for stereo output and the other one for microphone input. Now in the right corner, you will find Gigabyte's Easy Debug Zone. This motherboard lacks a debug LED, but instead utilizes 4 LED lights to indicate VGA, CPU, boot, and DRAM issues if lit up. Now in the same area, we do get 2 physical buttons. One is to power on the motherboard, and the second is a multi-key option. By default, it acts as a reset, but you can map it to other functions like RGB switch, direct to BIOS switch, or a safe mode switch. In this area is also where you will find one of our ARGB headers. Moving right along, we do find our 4 DIMM slots for our DDR5 RAM that can support speeds up to 8200 megatransfers per second. Around this area is also where you will find the 24-pin motherboard connection and the front USB-C 20 gigabit per second connection. You will also find that there is a plug for HDMI here, so if you wanted to run like a LED screen inside your build, that's where you would connect it. Along the bottom here, you will find the front panel switches and LED connectors. You have 4 fan headers, 2 additional ARGB headers, 2 USB headers, and your audio header. For PCIe connections, we do get one PCIe 5.0 x16, which will come in handy as more cards move to PCIe 5.0 speeds, and you also get a quick release button for your GPU in case you are running the fast hands perk and you need to quickly reload GPUs. The other 2 PCIe express lanes on this board are PCIe 3.0. Moving over to our SATA connectors, we do get 4. Now, I'm sure that there are some people who will think that that's not enough, but as more people continue to move towards NVMe storage, I do feel like the lack of SATA expansion on this board is going to be a non-issue for the vast majority of people. And since we are on the topic of things that people may not like about this board only has one 19-pin USB 3.2 connection, meaning you can only run 2 USB 3 ports on your case. Now, this is not uncommon for budget or mid-range boards, but if you do plan on having a case with more USB 3 ports on it, you may need to look into a higher end board, maybe something like the X870 lineup. So other than the physical hardware here, we all know that AI is taking over the world. So why wouldn't we throw a little bit of AI into our motherboard? Our B650 here offers something called AORUS AI Snatch, which claims one-click ultimate performance boost through AI overclocking. Now, they're claiming up to a 9% CPU and memory performance boost that is tailored overclocking for your CPU and memory, faster data transfer and application loading, improved multitasking performance, and optimized overall system performance. But the AI goodies don't stop there. We also get AI-driven PCB design, which sounds insanely complicated, and you get AI-driven advanced BIOS optimization technology to enhance overall performance of your system. Skynet's just gonna take over. Now, no good motherboard review would be complete if we didn't show you the back of the board. I'm pretty sure there's somebody out there who would wanna see it. Now, I'm not sure who that person is, but this is a judgment-free zone, so here you are. This is pretty boring. There's nothing back here, except we do have a little bit of the AORUS logo. Now, you'll never see this. Once it's in your system, this is completely invisible, but there's nothing extra back here. It's just a PCB. Now, I don't usually do motherboard reviews, so if you did enjoy this, please give the video a thumbs up and lets me know if you guys enjoy this type of content. And if there is a motherboard that you would like me to take a look at, leave a comment in the comment section down below and let me know what board that is. Maybe I can make that happen. Now, if you wanted to see this board in its natural habitat, don't worry, I've got you covered. This thing is going in an extremely high-end gaming PC build, and I have a video coming out for that build in a couple weeks. So you're gonna wanna make sure you hit the subscribe button as well as hit the notification bell so that you don't miss when that video goes live. And before I go ahead and tell you the most important piece of information about this motherboard, I do wanna say that no matter where you are in the world, I hope that you are having the most fantastic day. And I'm gonna see you right here for the next video. That was the most important part of the video. Take care, guys.